This fun fold is called Fun Bifold Card. And in your packet, you have an instruction card with a spot to put a miniature card for a visual of what the technique is, along with all the supplies for a full-size card and that miniature card. So what I'm going to do is just show you some of the things, how I prep the packet, and then first I'll assemble the full-size card, and then I will assemble the miniature card. So everything in the packet that's got the terracotta tile, the petal pink, the ice cream cone, paper, and embellishments, all are for the miniature card. So I'm going to just set that aside, and we will first talk about the supplies in the packet for the full-size card. So I did all the prep work. I did the die cutting. The die cutting for the ovals is the layering ovals dies, and at the time of this video I do know they are retiring from the 2020-2021 annual catalog, one of my favorite of many of my favorite dies, and I've used that with the Gorgeous Grape and the Highland Heather and the Basic White to create an image for the project. Also, I have used the dies that will be in the next annual catalog, and they are currently available to purchase right now. So I have cut the large detail butterfly out of Gorgeous Grape. That's going to embellish our card. I have used the designer series paper in the January through June mini catalog called the Hydrangea Hill designer series paper. It is beautiful 12 by 12 designer series paper, and you are going to have this print or this print in your packet. Both work great, and it is cut to size. There is a Whisper White cardstock in there to stamp your inside sentiment, and also there could be fibers from the die cutting. I use the coordinating stamp set or stamp to stamp, and I use Gorgeous Grape, and the coordinating stamp is the Butterfly Brilliance, which is a background stamp. But the beauty of this stamp, as I have probably shared in a previous video that you may have watched, you can cut out all 6 of those butterflies, but the beauty of this is you don't need to keep it as a background stamp. You can cut it apart and create 6 individual butterflies. And I purchased 2 of the stamps so I could do that. And you can still cut them out with that other die. So I have stamped my inside piece of Whisper or Basic White with Gorgeous Grape and that stamp set, along with the frame for you is what I use for my sentiment. So that is some prep work you need to do, and I'm sharing what I did on this piece of Basic White cardstock. There is a coordinating or the Highland Heather that is ran through a folder. The folder I used is the subtle folder. At the time of this video, I do know that this subtle folder is retiring, so one of my favorites, but Stampin' Up! Has beautiful other dies that I'll start using more of, but it is one that is one of my favorites. It adds just a subtle texture to your project, so I love that. And then our cardstock. So I kind of went around this by explaining everything in the packet, but what I do want to do is just show you how I prep the packet, and now we'll talk about the instructions. And what you need for your card is a 8.5 or 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 2 1/8 and 3 or 6 3/8. I like scoring with the Simply Scoring tool, and I won't bring that into the picture today to show you how to do that. You can use a trimmer if you want to duplicate this card. But what we do is we score those 2 spots, so then we can fold the card, the outside panels together so they meet in the middle. And what it says is, the next part says on the right hand panel, we are going to attach a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of cardstock. This can be stamped, you can texturize it. As I mentioned, I texturized it with the subtle folder. That's going to be attached just to this panel. But there is a tip I want to give you that's not shared in here. And this piece of Basic White happens to be the very same size as this. When you close the card, you're not going to see it, But I suggest that maybe we attach this first, because the reason we would attach this first is if we center this, close this, and then attach this, we can make sure we're hiding that whisper white. And I can see mine is trimmed a little bit bigger here. So maybe sometimes that happens. So the suggestion would be is to make sure that the paper behind is shorter than the paper above. So your packet, they might be different. Your packet might have the white the same as mine or smaller. Sorry for the rambling. But my suggestion is to then trim this piece of cardstock. So the beauty of this is I have a trimmer right here. Before you assemble, you can take care of all of this. So maybe the suggestion would be is to actually trim this to be even smaller, like it could be 3 3/8 or 3 3/4. So I'm going to just, well, that's the scoring blade, and this is the cutting blade. So the beauty of these videos is you can get all the tips of what I would do different if I was to recreate the packet and recreate the assembly instructions. So I just trimmed a little bit off both edges, and you may need to do the same thing. So now what I'm going to do is suggest that you make sure this basic white is smaller than the Highland Heather. Attach this first. So now I'm just going to center this in my card. Then we're going to attach this panel to this panel. Now we can confirm that when we open up the card at this point, you will not see that basic white. Well, you wouldn't want to have it shown because then it wouldn't look right. So my tip for adhering this piece to this panel is we don't want any adhesive exposed on the back side beyond this panel, because then when we close the card, it will be adhered shut. So my suggestion is to flip this over, put your adhesive just on this strip and right here. Now what that means is your adhesive is here and here. When you turn it over, it will not be beyond this point. So what I'm going to do is put this on next. I'm going to look for equal spacing on all 3 sides on this panel, and just verify that when I close it or put it down, I don't see that basic white underneath. So that's what you want to do. So it's slightly different than the written instructions. Now, the reason I put this one on first is when I close this, this is cut to the same height of this piece, and it is cut 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. So I want to make sure I can line this up to be equal spacing here. So when I place that down, if I go equal spacing on all sides, I will have that lined up correctly. So now I would turn this over and apply my adhesive. And then I can go for equal spacing. And there we have that attached. Now the instructions say to attach a decorative image on the left panel, centering it, or with dimensional centering it. So let's assemble the decorative image. What this decorative image that I've provided you is an oval of basic white. You are welcome to stamp a sentiment on here first, an outside sentiment. I'm going to leave this one with no sentiment. I'm going to attach all of these with my double adhesive, and then I'm going to attach this piece to here with dimensionals. Again, we have the same concern. We don't want exposed adhesive because when you close the card, it will close it shut. I have not put anything that gives me an orientation yet on this image, so I can turn that over. Now I'm going to use dimensionals. I'm going to turn that over, and if I place this underneath, I know where my limitations are for placing this. So I'm going to put a couple dimensionals that are on the left panel, but inside the outside size of the image. And then I'm going to take one and put right here. Then if I take the backings off, turn this over, I can place this anywhere I want and not have an issue with adhesive sticking out beyond the panel. So now I'm looking for equal spacing, top and bottom, and there I have it. So now I'm going to put the butterfly on. I find it easier to put all of that on before I attach the butterfly. The butterfly is the largest of the dies. I'm going to suggest that you use mini glue dots to attach. I'm just going to bring the mini glue dot off and place it 2 down. I find that you probably want at least 2 for stability. Oops, one on my finger. And then make sure none of it's going to be exposed, and then you can place that down. Now, I don't have a sentiment on here, so I can place it anywhere. If I had placed a sentiment on here, then you want to place it accordingly. But I'm going to just put this butterfly right in the middle. In your packet, you have some basic pearls, and I'm just going to grab, I have a take your pick tool here, but I'm just going to grab my paper snips, kind of use it like a little pliers to pick these up. You got to make sure that you grab the pearl and the adhesive underneath it. And you have 3. So I put those 3 on like that. I find 3 is sufficient. If you wanted to, you could add a few more. But this is the card that you can create, and it is called a fun bifold card. I mentioned you can put a sentiment on this card. I put the sentiment on the outside. I put the butterfly going in a different direction, and you have some flexibility on that. So now on to the little miniature card. So for the miniature card, we have supplies that are already prepped for us. So we're going to put this together the very same way we put the previous one together. And since this is a little sample, I don't provide the dimensions for this, but if you've received the packet, you've already got those if you want to make a little card. So what I'm going to do is put the basic white on first and right in the middle of this panel. And then we'll take the petal pink. That's going to be, it's also texturized with a subtle folder. That's going to be on this side, and I can hide my basic white. And as I did on the previous one, and what you want to do is put adhesive on the edge of this panel, on the edge of this piece here, and then you can put equal spacing here just before you place it down and burnish it. Make sure it's covering up that basic white. And then we're going to fold that panel down. Then we're going to put the designer series paper on. Let me talk about the designer series paper I've provided in the packet. Also in the packet, let's see, well, here it is. There's a little heart. So we got some little pieces you don't want to lose. You got a scoop of ice cream, an ice cream cone, and again, the oval, layering oval circle. And this is the stitched shapes dies, which is also retiring, and it is a really fun one. So let me share how I got the little heart. The little heart is actually from something in the annual catalog, and it is not on the retiring list, so it is carrying over. It is our rainbow, might not be the correct name of it. Maybe I have that listed. It is the rainbow glimmer paper. So it comes in a 12 by 12 sheet, and as you can see, I've got a lot of 1/2 inch or a little bit smaller widths of strips, because what you can do is cut a strip to get just that color that you want for your project. So in my packet, I've cut some of these strips apart, and what you can do is take whatever color you want, and in this packet of designer series paper, the ice cream cone, you can use a lot of these different colors. So I'm starting to ramble, and I don't want to get the video too long. So what I've done is taken the dog builder punch, cut a strip. If it's wide enough, you can place your strip in this way. So this one is a 1/2 inch. But when I cut this one, it just was a little under 1/2 inch, so I have to put it under this way. What you can do then is cut strips and then punch out little hearts. So that's how I got the little heart. The ice cream images are from the ice cream builder punch. I also cut strips, and we're using this piece, so you might have any of these colors in your packet. There are 2 additional designer series papers that have the same type of design. Any of these would work. And the ice cream cone is, the cone part is punched from the back of this paper. Cut some strips and use the punch. I'm going to share some tips about this paper. I mentioned 3 are like this, and this is one of them. What I did was I cut my strips apart, and underneath I can visually show you, I kind of got scrambled here. I cut these strips apart, then I took the punch, and then I cut out, you can fast forward through this if you don't want to see this portion of it, but let me just take these out of the way. Then what I was able to do is take and punch out the top part of the ice cream part and then punch out all of these. You might be asking, why did I punch out these little guys like this and it's missing the top part? Because what you can do with those is create your ice cream that is double decker. If you stack that on top, nobody's going to know that there's not a full ice cream on the underneath part. So also save any of those pieces because you can make an ice cream cone that goes higher. So that's how I prepped this part. And your ice cream is going to be a wide variety of color choices from that same sheet of paper, same piece of designer series paper. So now I'm going to use my adhesive, and just like the previous one, we want to make sure that this lines up fairly equal. This is going to be our little sample for our instruction card. So let's layer this together. Again, want to use dimensionals. I'm going to turn this over. That just helps me know my area where I don't want to have a dimensional exposed. That gives me that visual. Let me use my take your pick tool to get the backings off. Turn this over, equal spacing. Now this image is bigger than this one, and that's okay. That image can be any size, and you just attach it to the left panel. Now for the ice cream, I'm just going to put this down with adhesive. You can use dimensionals. I'm just going to put this down with adhesive and create the ice cream. And the little heart is so you can put on with a mini dimensional or with a mini glue dot. And usually I bring the item to the mini glue dot, but these are so small that I'm just going to attach the heart. So that's your miniature card. What you want to do is put adhesive on the back of it and attach it to your instruction card. So you will have the instructions for a fun bifold card. So next time you want to make that, you have the instructions for the full-size card and you have a little visual of what the card looks like. Hope you enjoyed this project. Thanks for shopping with me, and stay safe and stay healthy.